The Honda Passport is all new for the 2026 model year, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior changes, the interior changes, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. And so as far as the styling here, well, obviously it's a radical departure and does now look significantly different from the Pilot that it's based on, and that's very much appreciated. They went and upped the ante even more here with the TrailSport version, which looks extra aggressive. And as far as all Passports in general, they're all going to be 2.4 inches longer on a 2.7 inch longer wheelbase than before, so more spread out. The track is 1.3 inches wider in the front, 1.5 inches wider in the rear. It's also almost an inch taller and almost an inch wider as well. And so it really, has a meaningful amount of extra mass to it here, and especially with the styling that really accentuates it with the very blocky styling, which I think is what a lot of people were asking for and wanting. And you now have it here, and again with the TrailSport version even more aggressive. You got those orange tow hooks. The TrailSport versions also give the orange daytime running lights there, and a few other little tweaks with like the wheels and stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. But really thoughtful improvements too. Like they said, the fog lights which you get here on the TrailSports were placed specifically to be nice and high so that they avoid damage a little more than more lower placed fog lamps. And they also have 8.3 inches of ground clearance on all Passports. By the way, you do get a different suspension tune here for the TrailSport, but no extra ground clearance aside from what these tires give you here. But you also do get extra skid plates here for the engine and oil pan and transmission. And you also get another one there for the back for the fuel tank area. But they also said that they reduced the overhangs front and rear. So we have better approach, better breakover, better departure angles, all that to actually help this thing to do some more legitimate off-roading than before, along with a few other tricks that we'll cover here in a minute. But I think it looks really nice up front here, and especially those orange DRLs are a nice touch in my opinion. Coming down to the sides here, again, you have these tires, which are the biggest tires Honda has ever fitted to a production vehicle, they say. 31-inch general grabber all-terrain tires, real all-terrain tires. Unlike past TrailSports where it was basically just a more exciting sidewall, this is a real all-terrain 31-inch tire on 18-inch wheels. They also say the rim is designed to be recessed, so there's less damage. The valve stems are even a little bit more recessed. So, they really did an honest approach to, trying to make this thing more off-road capable. And I think that, certainly stands out from some of the others that are more lighter with their enhancements. You also do have the cool body cladding here with the little, indents in it for the bodywork, and also down to the sides here, some ridges to it. I also really like how you have the roof rack that's built into the rear tailgate area there, and you can see that it kind of blends in, and you have some more of that black on that back part. They say they call it a backpack style inspiration for the way they did that rear hatch area. But I think it's a really cool look. And going out to the back there, you'll see that you have some unique taillights here compared to Pilot, and of course you see that unique tailgate as well with Passport stamped into the back of it there, and a rugged rear bumper that also does have a standard tow hook there and towing package. So this thing is ready to tow 5,000 pounds from the factory as standard on all of these, which is great. And just really cool look, again, just being so boxy. I think this is gonna be a huge hit as far as the styling, and I think also with all the other components here, the V6 that's been retained, and the really spacious interior that these larger dimensions provide. So anyway, let's check out that interior. The interior of the Passport is very nice here, and even nicer than the Pilot currently, with this nice big widescreen display and some really cool touches. I really love the orange stitching you have here on the TrailSport, and it's just a little bit roomier, and you can really feel that and appreciate that here. I'll get into all the improvements with that in this segment. But first off, sitting down in these seats, so this is a regular TrailSport. There's also the TrailSport Elite and a blacked out Elite version as well of the TrailSport, but these are the regular TrailSport seats, and they are a combination of leatherette and cloth. It's a cool look. The cloth is very rough, so it gives that rugged kind of vibe. And again, I love the stitching and the stripe here, but they're not perforated. Only the seats in the Elite TrailSport are perforated, and that also gives you ventilation in those seats. You don't get that here in these, and as a result, here in the summertime, these seats are pretty hot because they don't breathe. I honestly wish they were just cloth, because the leather just makes it worse as far as breathability goes. But that's how they decided to play it. Now, you do have memory seats here on the regular TrailSport, which is certainly nice, and heated seats come standard on all versions of the Passport, so that's great. And they're comfortable seats. They have a good amount of support, and again, they look great. Just again, again, wish they were perforated or cloth if you're not going to go for full leather with perforation. But anyway, moving on to the steering wheel here. This is the same wheel we get in other Hondas, aside from the fact that you have the little orange stripe here through it and also the orange stitching and the TrailSport badging. But it's a great wheel. Honda does great steering wheels, great 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches. Just a few buttons here on it, but very minimal, and that's rare these days. So I just absolutely love this steering wheel. You also have the 10-inch digital gauge cluster as standard in all of these, and it's really great. Again, we've seen this in other Hondas for several years now, but you know, they work really well. And the cool thing here is that for the Passport TrailSport, you get a few new drive modes, including a trail mode, and that'll give you some new views in those gauges to show you your elevation, your tilt and pitch and all that. And it's cool you have those. You also have all the other usual adjustments there that you can go through. And there's also like a tow and a sand mode now as well, and even a sport mode. So they've made it sportier and more rugged there, and you know, the gauges do a little bit of a change for that as well. But you know, really nice gauges. Obviously, it'd be nice to see them do, you know, 12-inch cluster to fill out that whole display, so you have the fuel and coolant included, but you know, works totally fine. Coming over to the middle here, you have this 12.3-inch touchscreen right up top, and that is really nice. If you're familiar with the Honda Accord, it's the same screen here, and it's pretty good, and it's pretty quick and snappy. No complaints as far as speed goes, but I do have a couple little complaints with this screen. First off, it's Google built in, which is great if you're in the Google ecosystem and you want to sign in to everything and run everything natively, and you can download apps from the Play Store, have those run natively. You have Amazon Alexa. If you want to sign into all of these things, you have that capability. Thankfully, it also does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Unfortunately, this week I tried to connect my phone probably half a dozen times at least before I finally gave up. It would not connect to Apple CarPlay. Honda systems in the past have been fine though, so I'm just going to, you know, say this one is just off for some reason. My phone connected fine to other cars throughout the week here. It was just this one that did not want to pair with. But typically that would work, and it's really great that you still have that. My other complaint though is that this does not have Sirius satellite radio. Honda and Acura, for some reason, whenever they added the Google Play Store and all the Google stuff, that meant that they had to get rid of satellite radio for some reason, even though basically everybody else that has Google built in also does have satellite radio separately. And so in this, you're going to have to rely on either CarPlay or Android Auto and using the app in there to listen to you know, satellite radio through streaming instead of through the actual satellite connection. Again, I don't know why they've done that, but at least there is a workaround there if you want to pair your phone and do that way. But again, still just a needless thing, and especially this week since I couldn't use my phone, I was basically restricted to just FM radio and Bluetooth audio. Those were my two options there. But yeah, everything else works fine, and it's a nice attractive screen as well. Now, it's also paired up to a 9-speaker stereo here as standard, and that's what is even in this higher TrailSport. You only get the 12-speaker Bose stereo in the TrailSport Elite. And that's, you know, a nice improvement, I'm sure. But honestly, this 9-speaker stereo, I'm really happy I got to sample it. There's no need to upgrade. This is one of the best bass stereos I've ever come across, in my opinion. It is super clear, super crisp. I'm just very happy with it. So that's one area where, you know, don't feel like you're missing out if you don't go for the Bose stereo. I'm sure it's better, but I don't know how much better, because this is really, really fantastic. But that does also bring up another point, that there's no way to get a non-rugged top trim. You basically have the RTL, but then beyond that, the Elite is only paired with TrailSport. So someone who wants a fully loaded Passport is forced into all the rugged stuff, having orange tow hooks and all that other stuff, which some people might even consider embarrassing. If you just want a nice luxury, you know, SUV here, you know, I think that's just kind of unfortunate. There's no regular Elite. They've always offered that in the past. Why they don't anymore, I don't know, but just know if you want all the goodies, you're going to have to be an extrovert with orange stitching and orange tow hooks and you know, pretending like you go off-roading. So again, just kind of a strange packaging choice there, in my opinion. But anyway, coming down here, you also see you have this cloth again on the dashboard, which is really cool. And you also have a nice big cubby right there in the dash built in too. And then coming down, you'll see your climate controls. And I love that we still have physical knobs here. That's great. They feel great. They look great. Honda's top notch with how all the you know, controls feel in their vehicles, and I really love that. But you also will see you know, you have the heated seat controls here, but there's no heated steering wheel either unless you go for the Elite TrailSport. So to really lock it out of just everything except that top trim for a heated wheel, these days is a little less excusable than it used to be back in the day, especially on trail sports. You know, the regular trail sport, you're going off-roading, you're probably, you know, going out camping, you might be in cold weather. It'd be nice to have that here. But again, you got to go up and spend, this is already 50 grand, you got to spend over 53 if you want a heated steering wheel and a Passport. Don't love, again, the way they package that either. Coming down here, though, you do have a Qi wireless charging pad as standard and this nice rubberized area with the cool little topography on it there. And the wireless charging pad is okay. It does have brackets and it is rubberized, but I found that in my experience with my phone without a case on it, that it will charge, but going around corners, it still slides right out of there. So they need to do more to secure it, and you know, a little bit of a raised surface like Hyundai does would be better, or just bigger brackets or something. But as it is, you know, still not super usable, but you do have, of course, those two USB-C jacks and a regular power outlet right next to it as well. You also just have Honda's typical push button shifter here, and then also a little drive mode selector with the orange, which is cool. And you have two cup holders here. You also do have the center armrest, which is nice and wide and softly padded. And you open that up and you'll see a nice and square space there. In this area, though, also one other thing is that you do have hard plastic down by your knees. Again, they're going for the rugged vibe here, so that's fine, but just know that there are some other competitors that do feel a little plusher. And I mean, the Hondas are never usually the plushest interiors, but just know that if you don't need the rugged thing, there's a lot of options that are a lot more plush than this. And I also have to say, one final thing here is, like, there are some plastics that feel cheap. The door handles are pretty cheap plastic and just don't feel super sturdy. Even down here, I don't know, this is pre-production or what, but this has some wiggle to it whenever you grab on this grab handle. And I don't love that. Now, other stuff though in the doors here that is impressive, you have 3 levels of storage here if you count the you know, grab handle here. You have, you know, another cup holder thing, another space, and also a nice large pocket in the bottom there. So really great as far as all that goes. Now, moving on to the back seat here in the Passport. It's a really nice amount of space. Passport's already had pretty good amount of space in my opinion, but this now has 1.3 inches of extra rear legroom, which is fantastic. And I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. As you can see, plenty of legroom there for myself. Also, tons of headroom, even with this panoramic roof, which by the way comes on TrailSport, regular TrailSport, and higher. And that's a really nice thing to have, because a lot of the competitors don't actually have the panoramic moonroof still. And so, yeah, that's one thing that separates this, for example, from 4Runner and some of the others, you know, that again just don't have that. It's also got, you know, its own air vents back there, their own USB-C jacks. You also get a tri-zone climate in that TrailSport Elite, and they also get heated outboard rear seats in that top version as well. But you know, here it's just, you know, the same usual seats, and you also see a fold-down center armrest with cup holders built into it and pockets in those doors, including again another cup holder there and all that. You also get rear sunshades there in the Elite version to, you know, make this a little bit more family friendly as well. Moving on to the cargo space here, that is phenomenal. I mean, first you can see just how square, rectangular, I guess, that shape is to, you know, I mean, it's going to be so versatile for fitting all kinds of stuff. Just maximizes the usability here with just being, again, just so wide open. And you'll also see it's a nice long space. It's a little bit of a higher floor, which is, you know, kind of interesting, but you can see all the extra bins there on the left hand side and on the right hand side. You can, you know, do all kinds of stuff. You also have the option for a full-size spare tire in this. Now, this one as equipped just has the regular spare tire, but it is still appreciated that we even have a spare, because a lot of vehicles are getting rid of that these days. So we have that under the floor there, and also another deep cubby. You could fit like a decent sized duffel bag there in there still. I just love all those little bins. I think that's very handy and a very thoughtful kind of inclusion, and they did a really great job, I think, with packaging. And that, along with the dimensional changes, allows this to get 3 extra cubic feet of cargo space over the last generation, and that is actually best in class, Honda claims. It's also best in class rear legroom, by the way. So I mean, if you want the most space possible in this segment, I mean, this is, I mean, miles better than 4Runner, for example, even the new 4Runner, miles better than Outbacks and, you know, all the usual stuff that this gets compared to typically. I mean, it's you know, best in class, and it really is, you know, going to be the top pick if you want the most space possible. But let's start up and go for a drive. The Passport here has the same usual Honda key. It's a really great key, so small. That's what I love about it. Just a few buttons there on it, but this is the smallest key in the industry. I think hands down, I absolutely love it. Of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start, and it is proximity key for the front doors. You can get all 4 doors proximity if you'd like. That's only in the Passport TrailSport Elite though. But anyway, if you just leave the key in your pocket here and hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2026 Passport TrailSport. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, the first thing I think I noticed is just the nice high seating position you have here. You have a nice commanding view of the road. Pretty thin A-pillar, so visibility is pretty good. And just nice tall glass and everything. Great view out of the back. Nice square window there. You also do have, the 360 camera you can get. There's a trail cam even. Speeds under 15 miles per hour. If you have the TrailSports, it will go and put that on for you and allow you to see things that you normally couldn't see. And so that's really a very nice thing off-road, especially. I've experienced those types of systems in other vehicles off-road, and they are lifesavers. So if you actually plan to off-road, that's going to be really, really great. You also do have hill descent control now and a bunch of other things here to help with your off-roading. But as far as back on road here, other things that I'm noticing. So you do have quicker steering here for 2026. And it's not sports car fast or anything, but it's just a nice weight to the steering here. Throttle response is pretty good as well. My only complaint, as you'll see when we accelerate, is that the transmission still just takes a moment to figure out what gear it needs to be in before it actually responds. But other than that, once you're up and running here, it's nice and responsive. Brakes, also there's a new brake booster now, and the brakes are 1.2 inches larger than before for the rotors, and so that's necessary partially because this has gained some weight, but also just to give you, a more confidence-inspiring feeling there. And it all just feels really good. Honda always nails the driving dynamics as far as how everything feels whenever you're using it, again, aside from that transmission tuning sometimes, but otherwise, yeah, it just is nice and smooth. And we'll demonstrate here. So there's always like a beat, and you'll notice, at least me, over the course of the week here, I'm often just accelerating harder than I'm wanting to, but it's that I put my foot down, I don't get the expected response, I push a little more, and then it gives me too much. And it's always this kind of guessing game. It's pretty consistent with the lag, so it's something you can probably learn to condition yourself for as far as your inputs eventually, but it's just not great and something other competitors don't make you settle for. But otherwise, there's also a stiffer structure here now, and there's more sound deadening too, so it's going to make it feel more refined in addition to having that longer wheelbase. But if you want to have the most refinement, you're going to go for the Elite version of the TrailSport, which does have acoustic front glass. You don't get that here in the others. But anyway, I'm going to put it up into the sport mode here, which does give you some heavier steering, quicker throttle, all those types of things. And we're going to turn down onto this back road and see how it does. And here we go. See? There it is. And then it really rips and takes off nicely. But again, that was that delay. You can hear when I put my foot down, hear the clink, and then you hear when it actually goes for it. So that's the only complaint here. But it is all very old school here with this powertrain. We have a 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 engine. It does 285 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque. And 0 to 60 time is going to be around 7 seconds or so, about the same as a Pilot. It's fine, but I think if you do want something punchier, I do think at least in my impressions, the 4Runner does feel stronger with its turbocharging, and the turbocharging even in like the Subaru Outback, feels a little punchier because you have, again, that low end power. This doesn't have that. This has to rev to the moon, and it's more old school. Some people are going to love this. Some people, are not going to love it. If you test drive the competitors that have, the punchier response. 4Runner, you can even get electrification, and that electric zip in the 4Runner really makes that thing feel super impressive. So, but for someone who just wants a good old V6 and, nothing complicated, here you go. You have, something very comfortable. Now, it is paired up to a new 10-speed automatic. That's also a new improvement from Pilot. Pilot got the same new engine, the same transmission here a couple of years ago, but it's a 10-speed now instead of the 9-speed you had previously. And so having the one extra gear is certainly, appreciated and will probably help off-road as well. But, and we'll also go, because we were just in the regular drive, because Sport Mode doesn't put the transmission in its sportiest setting. So I'm going to, again, try and stomp on it. We'll go down to about 5 miles an hour here and stomp on it again. Still though, still has that lag. So if you are in a hurry, make sure you do both sport modes. But that still doesn't fix that, transmission delay there. And I think that's what it is. It's really something I've complained about, and even Acuras in the past, they all do this, where the 10-speed just takes too long to figure out what gear you want to be in. I think it's just set up to hypermile, so it's always trying to start you in second or third gear or whatever, and then, you know, it starts off with that, and you're like, well, I'm not going anywhere, and then it's like, oh no, we have full throttle input, let's kick it down a gear. And that whole thinking process and realization for the transmission takes it, you know, an extra second or two, and just, you know, gives you a delayed feeling from behind the wheel. Again, you can probably learn to live with it, but, you know, that's something that has irked me throughout the course of the week here. Otherwise, though, it's a really nice, smooth ride. So this road does generate some more road noise. You certainly hear some of it. You know, again, that Elite's going to be the quieter way to go, but you also do have some tire noise. Now, that's to be expected with the Trail Sports here, because you have these, you know, very legitimate, you know, knobby all-terrain tires, which is great if you are actually going for that. But again, it just means that if you are someone who wants everything and you just want an Elite trim and you got to be forced into the Trail Sport thing, you're going to have some real tire noise that you might not be used to if you're not coming out of a Wrangler or a Bronco or something, because that's the level of tire noise you get. Again, it's quieter than those vehicles because of everything else here and being unibody instead of body on frame. I just really wish there was a way to do, you know, non-knobby tires on a nice trim of the Passport. But otherwise here, you know, it is a pretty large vehicle, and I have noticed throughout this week that, you know, it does feel pretty big behind the wheel. So whenever you're on, like, this road's a little more narrow here, it does feel like I'm kind of, you know, in a pretty big vehicle. A lot of people probably want that feeling. They want to feel like they're in this big, bulky SUV, but just know that, you know, if you're in tight parking spaces, things like that, you're going to want to make sure you're using those cameras at least while you learn the dimensions of the Passport here, because it is certainly on the larger side. But coming up some corners here I always take. Let's see how the Passport handles. Obviously, one of the worst handling ones will be these Trail Sport versions with these tires, but we'll try it out anyway here. And, you know, it's very well behaved. You know, it does what it's told. You just have to recognize, you know, that your limits are lower, obviously, with these tires, but it really tries to maximize it as best it can, because we do have the fantastic Honda torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, true torque vectoring, where it overdrives the inside rear wheel, and I felt it right there. It really helps this to rotate better whenever you know, put in a little bit of throttle. And this is also an improved all-wheel drive system, so it has a new rear diff now that they say can react faster and also send 40% more torque to the rear. 70% of the torque goes to the rear now, up to that, you know, amount if conditions deem it necessary, and up to 100% of that available 70% can go to just one individual wheel. And that means it's really smart. So when you're off-roading, if you're hanging a tire off the ground, it will know to not put power to that tire, and will put it to the other one, the full amount of power to the other one, and kind of functions as a locking diff. Now, you don't have any manual lockers here in this, and so that's the one area where this is, you know, less dedicated than the Jeep Grand Cherokee, or, you know, like the 4Runner especially, which really does have that truck kind of capability. You know, you don't have anything quite that advanced here in this. But again, because of all the other enhancements here to the off-roading, and also, you know, the tech like the hill descent control, things like that, you know, you have plenty of assistance there. They also did toughen up a bunch of the other stuff underneath. So you have stronger control arms, stronger steering knuckles than before. And for the Trail Sport here, they also get a unique suspension tune, of course, but that involves also having a smaller front anti-roll bar, and also just, you know, softer tuning for the anti-roll bars in general. So, you know, again, there's going to be significant driving differences between these Trail Sports and regular versions of the Passport. I'm hoping to maybe try out a regular Passport at some point down the road, but I think Honda right now is very excited about just promoting the Trail Sport versions here, and for good reason. They say, at least so far, I don't know what the availability is like out on the dealer lots, but they're saying 80% of buyers are going for Trail Sport or Trail Sport Elite. Maybe that's all that's available mostly, I don't know, but, you know, it just seems like, at least early on here, people are very much wanting the Trail Sport, so I guess that's part of why, again, everything is Trail Sport focused as far as the trim packages and everything. And for anyone that's curious, these now weigh 4,676 pounds, and that's about 200 pounds heavier for the Trail Sport version here compared to a non-Trail Sport 2026 Passport. So that's another thing that will also change how this drives. If you're 200 pounds less mass in the non-Trail Sport ones, is going to help those to feel a little bit better in corners, in addition to having more street-based tires. So these have gotten, you know, pretty heavy, but again, it's the largest thing in its segment pretty much. You got the V6 engine, and, you know, the more advanced all-wheel drive and all these other things that, you know, contribute. Those steel skid plates you have, by the way, too. Another thing that most of the others just have, like aluminum or composite skid plates. The fact that they went steel for these is certainly going to give you that weight penalty, and that's part of probably a big chunk of that 200 extra pounds. And now we're out on the highway here in the Passport, and you know, it's a nice cruiser. Again, A little bit of tire noise, but honestly the tire noise is not bad. And especially some of the really off-roady ones, that have really insane tires, those are going to be a lot louder. So I think this is certainly livable, even if you aren't someone who's, into going off-road or off the beaten path all the time. Otherwise here I do also have the adaptive cruise control system on, along with its lane keep assist system, which comes standard. Everything safety-wise comes standard on all of these, which I love because you don't have to worry about paying extra just to feel like you have the safety tech you want or need. And so that means blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert with rear auto braking, automatic emergency braking in the front here. Everything is standard and it's all improved. They say the adaptive cruise control system's improved, the lane keep assist is improved, all these things, all the detection systems, everything is all improved here for 2026, which is great. And they also improved the structure. So the structure itself, obviously it's this whole new generation of the Passport, but it's much stronger, and they also made thoughtful considerations, like not only is it going to be safer for the occupants, but they designed like the bumper beam so that it's safer when it contacts smaller vehicles. And they didn't have to do that. All they're worried about is the people inside the car that that they're in, but they're also thinking about others, which is refreshing in this culture we are in these days. And as we're going around this gentle corner here now, it's doing a pretty good job of holding the line. I've had no complaints with the safety systems here this week. They've done a really good job. But I really like that Honda not only focuses on the safety, but also talks about the crash structures. Everyone likes talking about the technology, but what happens if that technology fails or isn't enough? And I'm happy that we have, the top-notch safety that Honda really thought about, the advanced airbags that they've pioneered that reduce head motion. I mean, there's so many cool things that they've done that make this to feel even safer than the average vehicle in this segment that has maybe the same number of airbags, same size, whatever. But I just really love that about Honda, and I'm really happy they focus so much on that here in the 2026 Passport. Fuel economy for the Passport is rated at 18 mpg in the city, 23 on the highway, and 20 combined. And in my driving here, I would say I did about 1/3 of it on the highway, maybe a little bit more than that. And so I'm impressed that I'm actually averaging 19.8 mpg, so I'm hitting 20 mpg, the combined figure, and I was only expecting to get the city rating or slightly less, because I typically get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in my usual week with a vehicle. And so to be getting 20 mpg, I'm actually pleasantly surprised and happy about that. Obviously it's still not fantastic. You have the hybridization of the 4Runner, for example, which will get you a little bit better fuel economy. You can also get the Grand Cherokee with a 4xe version with a plug-in hybrid. So there are some more advanced competitors out there if you are interested in efficiency, but I'm assuming if you're interested in Passport, you're excited about the fact that it has a good old V6 in it here, and so fuel economy will not be a concern most likely. But just know that it does pretty decent compared to what those ratings claim it's going to get. And then the last thing here to really mention, though, is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So let's get into that. So the Passport starts at $46,200, which is far higher than the Pilot that it's based on, but that's because this starts with a well-equipped RTL trim. This regular TrailSport was $50,355 as tested, but a fully loaded TrailSport Elite with the Blackout package will cost you $55,100, which is definitely on the high side for this segment. But if you want to get the best price possible for a Passport, you're definitely going to head over to mattmoranmotoring.com. There you'll go to the new car quotes tab, where you can get access to dealer invoice pricing, as well as getting connected to a local dealer so you can check out the Passport for yourself and see what you think about it. So there's going to be a link in the pinned comment, as well as one in the description, to take you straight to that site and get you all that information. Now, as far as how the Passport compares to its competition, I think the Pilot might be the toughest competitor, actually. It has the same great mechanical upgrades with the new V6, the 10-speed automatic, the chassis improvements, and it all starts $4,500 less thanks to its lower trims that are available. But along with that discount, you also get a third row and more space than this. And if you do want the TrailSport goodies, you can get that on the Pilot for just $1,000 more than this. It does get a smaller 9-inch screen, but otherwise the interior is pretty similar too. And they offer a Touring and Elite version without all the TrailSport stuff for those who don't like the extroverted orange accents. Now, as far as the other competitors in the two-row midsize SUV segment, there's about 9 other vehicles, but because we're reviewing the TrailSport here, I'm going to skip the non-rugged competitors like the excellent Mazda CX-70, the new Nissan Murano, and the Volkswagen Atlas Crossport and Chevy Blazer. The strongest competitor right now in the more rugged kind of segments here is the Subaru Outback Wilderness, which is only $45,000 with similar power from a turbo 4-cylinder, but in that it comes with a CVT, unfortunately. And while it has great ground clearance and does have some off-road capability, it just has less off-road capability due to its less aggressive tires, and again that CVT kind of holding it back a little bit as well. It also has worse infotainment and worse space due to still being just a lifted wagon at the end of the day. A new Outback is coming late this year that fixes some of those things, but we don't have any pricing for that yet either. But the current one's $5,000 discount before any additional dealer discounts, by the way, makes it, definitely worth considering. You can also get a Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited for the same sticker price as this Passport, and there's a lot of discounts that are very abundantly available on those as well, but it doesn't offer the beefy tires or the more heavy-duty off-road equipment that this does. But the fact that you can get a limited Grand Cherokee for the same price as this is a tempting proposition, and that, again, with the massive discounts I've been seeing, I mean, you could get that for a lot less. And if you're serious about off-roading, the new Toyota 4Runner is excellent, and only about $2,000 more for a comparable TRD off-road trim. Even, with the wilder versions, there's those that are available if you have more of a bigger budget, but even just that regular TRD off-road gives you things like the locking diff, but you don't get the steel skid plates, for example, and it also doesn't have the other niceties like the panoramic roof, and you'll have to spend even more if you want the bigger 14-inch touchscreen instead of the tiny little 8-inch screen you get in those lower trims of the 4Runner. You also get much less passenger space in the 4Runner. Lastly, if you're looking for something that has a little less off-road capability but still has a rugged look, the Hyundai Santa Fe XRT might fit the bill, and that's really a bargain at only $43,000 and gives you better technology and a third row. The Kia Sorento X Pro is only $49,000 fully loaded, and that gives you things like ventilated seats, and that has just basically tires and a slight lift, but again, gives you just some really nice stuff on the inside there as well as a third row. So as you can see, the Passport isn't the most expensive out there, but it's close, but it does go farther than basically all the others in the off-road department other than that 4Runner. So it'll come down to just how much capability you actually want and need, and how badly you want that V6 versus how flexible you are. And if you just kind of want a rugged look, there's a lot of others that I think kind of do that without having to go overboard like the Passport might be if, again, you're not a true off-roader or someone who really goes off the beaten path all the time. And even if you are a Honda fan that wants those things, it's hard to argue against getting the Pilot instead. And I think even if you don't need the third row, you fold those seats down, you have an even bigger cargo space than this, and you have all the other same Honda stuff basically. I think that's going to be really, again, just the toughest competitor here for the Passport. So overall, I really like the Passport. I think they did an excellent job on updating this. I'm glad that we did get a nice screen increase. I was expecting just the Pilot interior, and the fact that this is better than that, I'm very happy and pleasantly surprised about. And I think that even though it might not be the best value in this segment, for a lot of people, having that Japanese reliability here of Honda, that naturally aspirated V6 engine, I think that's going to be a very appealing combo for a lot of people. And I think that if the discounts on a Grand Cherokee, or waiting on a wait list for a 4Runner, or waiting for the new Outback here coming later this year, now I think this is really great. And again, best in class rear legroom, best in class cargo space, great looks, a lot of fun colors, by the way. Unfortunately, they sent the boring white here, but there's a lot of great colors for these too, which is another really nice touch. And so all things considered, I think they did a very good job. I wish, packaging things were slightly different with the tweaking of that. But otherwise, I think it's really, really well done. And so yeah, anyway, that's all of my thoughts on the 2026 Honda Passport. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Honda for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.